Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you live around the world. Following directly on from our previous video, I'd made mention of favouring the star hub type approach to our dome project. I also said that I had options of where that hub design could be used. In mind, I was thinking it can be used on the top surface, as in here, the bottom surface, or the mid surface, or mid position. Each has their benefit. If we have the hub with the star, this is actually showing a central hub. I'll use that just to position things. But if this were a plate that comes across and joins in with the other struts, then it still has a potential bending moment in this position, just as all three positions have a bending moment or force in these positions. The central hub has a more neutral option or potential for the bending, and if we had, in my preference, a plate on the top and bottom, then it pretty much eliminates the bending moment, because rather than it flexing through this point that I'm just indicating here, it effectively has a bending moment that's 100 millimeters wide. That makes it incredibly strong. I've also seen where the mention was that the thickness of the plates in the star hub were 2.5 to 3 millimeter. Okay, that's what's workable, but that's for a dome. We don't have a dome. We have a truncated, much, you could say, weakened structure, because we've only got the pergola or the carport being supported through 4 points, the legs. That means that compared to the dome, the stresses at the hub points at the leg, both at the base, or what I call the foot, or at the top of the leg, where it meets what I keep on referring to as the roof, or the top, has greater stresses on the hubs. A full dome has all the energies dissipated through the numerous hubs and struts that direct the forces down to the ground or the base. That's not what happens in a structure like I'm trying to design and work through, where all those forces are truncated and are forced and directed through the legs only, the 4 legs only. That being the case, what may work for a full-size dome with a 2.5 or 3 millimeter plate, I would suggest would be grossly undersized for what we're wanting to do with the carport or gazebo. Therefore, the 3-point, in the case I won't be using a 3 millimeter plate. I'll be using between a 5 and a 6 millimeter plate, and placed top and bottom, or at least a 6 meter plate placed in the center, would be more likely to be to suffice for our stresses. A 6 millimeter plate or 5 millimeter plate is very, very rigid. So when we are considering our structures for both our struts and our hubs, we've got to be mindful of that we're not, in this case, using a full dome. And the stresses therefore imposed upon these structures have to be taken into consideration in our specific end design. I follow this because I have heard other people in other areas, not specifically this, making comment, but we used it there, so therefore it'll be okay for this job. And I go, well, no, it can't. You can't assume that. And therefore, I tend to be the natural born worrywart, where we say we got to build it we have to build it a little bit stronger to cover those assumptions. So my preference is to have a plate similar to this on the top and a plate very similar to this on the bottom to neutralize the stresses. Now, the only consideration we have to make is, what is the difference between the top and bottom plate? Well, it's this little extension, and that will be dependent upon which hub we're building. Therefore, going back to my channel name of Sketchy Builder, I like building through the use of SketchUp. I save myself no end of problems by going through SketchUp, via SketchUp, and making the necessary design considerations within the software, rather than having to make all these trial runs in reality, which would normally be the case. I can either go with a very, very strong, now remembering this is not a tube, as I said, I use this just to set up, but it would be a plate that's continuous across the top, tying two struts together, or actually all 6 struts together, but being neutralized from flexation through the bottom hub. So one of these on the top, one of these on the bottom, so there's no ability for the hub to flex through the plate. If we do that, then yes, we can come back to using a lighter structural member or plate consideration. We could use perhaps a 3mm plate here and a 3mm plate here. It's late at night, and by doing that, we neutralize the pressures and any stresses on the strut, because we've got bolts going through the strut and the hubs tying everything together. The ability for this to stress the hub becomes almost zero compared to any other design, including my much preferred solid angled hub, my preference for what I was calling the star hub, where you've got the center tube with welded on plates. I still like it, but this version I think is likely better structurally. If we do it properly or do it well, we could have what we call mushroom or round-headed bolts on the top, creating no stresses on the fabric if we're using a flexible membrane, and the nut or the fixing up the bottom could be, well, it's not going to affect the outside membrane. If we want to have the rigid surfaces, all we need to do is to drop this plate down the amount that we would require the strut to be angled for the dihedral angles. It becomes neutral as far as that goes, and needn't be a restriction for putting solid surfaces on it like acrylic, Lexan, polycarbonate, plywood, etc. So this design has more benefits than my more preferred solid hub, or what I had been calling the star design. So which one am I going with? Well, I'm definitely going with this one. this version. I can create within SketchUp the necessary, how would you call it, the versions, the top and bottom, and because it can be bolted right through, the timbers can either be left angled or square. And in the next video I'm going to show the mock-up of that, and I hope that what I'm clumsily conveying is that this is going to look actually damn nice hub and strut design. Way easier than I think any of these other two, and I think it's going to look quite elegant. Well, we will see in the next video, won't we? Until then, I'll say goodbye, and I'll see you soon.